Hello. Nice to see you. Oh, thank you so much, Trees, for the otters first thing. That's lovely. It's just lovely. And you fed them too. That's amazing. Hey, Shill, how you doing? So, guys, could you just tell me how the audio is? Like, while I just finish getting things ready? I'm very happy with some changes that StreamYard's just made. Mm-mm. I can now add the intro to the stream so that it just with one button when I say go live it all plays. This kind of like OBS. Like I think they're knowing they're going to be losing people. Hey nerd, thank you. And hey Sean, good. I'm glad it's all clear because I have a question for you. On the thumbnail, we have two cases that I want to cover first, and then a heads up. I actually did uh, a forwarding to the Boone stream. I just wanted to make the Boone stream separate since she's going to trial so soon. I wanted it in the playlist like by itself. So when we finish these two, at the when I end it, we'll be going into another room to start Boone. But you guys can actually just go. It's going to direct you, from what I understand, if it works properly through YouTube. Hopefully, you guys got notifications today. But anyway, back to the question. The question is, would you like to cover the missing Kansas moms, Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelley's homicides first, or the Babylon body parts out of Suffolk County, New York, that we covered like in the beginning of the year? Hey, Jen, let's get the sadness out of the chat right away with a group grope. I'm all for it. Yes, everybody just turn around and give Jen a great big grope. Hey there, Jen. Always good to see you. And we don't want no sadness, but we do have two murders to discuss. And both cases have multiple murders, more than one, and multiple suspects. And that's why I'm doing them together. It's like a thing, you know. But I guess you could say Butler or Babylon, or let's say one for the Kansas moms and two for the Babylon body parts case, which was Brown and Conneely. Hmm. Okay, nobody's guessing. All right, you're gonna just let me do whatever I'm gonna do then, huh? Oh wait, one. Okay, that's the Kansas City mom. Thank you, Sean. So far, it's going to be whatever Sean says. We've got two for Babylon. Well, we're going to do both, Shill. I just want to know which one to start with because they're separate presentations. I have to bring them up one at a time. All right. So since two kind of outvoted, I'm going to start with Babylon and then we'll go into the other one. But I hope every three close your eyes and pick. Nice choice there. Great choice there. Fish nerd that's playing it close to the vest a little bit there. Okay, let's go back. Get this. All right. Let me just look at for which one. Oh, I like this one. All right. So back in the beginning of the year in March, okay, this case, the Babylon body case, started in the beginning of 2024 with a shocking murder involving the deaths of two victims, Malcolm Craig Brown, who's 35, and Donna Conneely, 44, who were in a relationship living together. They were both from Yonkers, New York, but they were here with the defendants now, living in a house in Amityville at 25 Railroad Avenue, I do believe that was. This is from my previous presentation. They found the body parts of these two victims all over. They were all over in Babylon, in Suther's Pond, in a couple of other places in the woods. There was 3 different locations. Okay. There was an extensive search for with the body parts. Then they got that led to the home. Okay. And then they did actually, in the Suffolk County Police issued a warrant for investigation into the home at 25 Railway Road, and they went in there and they found some leftover mess. And so the 4 occupants of the home um, were then um, taken in. Just to give you the recap for this is that the further investigation in February, detective found those remains on February 29th and resulted in the following: that a search warrant was executed for 25 Railroad Avenue, and on March 4th, no human remains were located during the search. Human remains were located in a wooden area over on Lakeway Drive in West Babylon on the 5th, and the scene was processed by Suffolk County Police Homicide Squad and Suffolk County Medical Examiner. Human remains were also located over at Bethpage State Park on March 5th. The scene was processed again by the New York State Police and the officer of the Suffolk County Medical Examiner. Remains located in West Babylon, which were the original ones, and Bethpage are believed to belong to the same victim from February 29th. Now, on February 29th, someone on their way to school saw body parts on the wooded area of the lot near the school, and that started the whole thing. This female, which was unidentified at the time, 59 years old, had been identified, and her name is being withheld pending notification of the king. At the time I did my last stream, we do know that that was Donna Conneely. The male has been tentatively identified and was 53 years old at the time of his death, and his name is Malcolm Craig Brown. Their last known address was the same location in Yonkers. However, it's unclear when they last resided there. Based on the investigation, it appears to be an isolated incident with no threat to the public. Now, this is the update from Ray Tierney's office, and he's the district attorney in Suffolk County, and you may know that name from other cases that we're dealing with, like Gilgo Beach. And that was one thing that we talked about last time we talked about this case, was if it could have been related because of how the bodies were chopped up. Further investigation, though, brings us to our update today. And just to give you a recap of further investigation led that this is what they know. They know that the 4 suspects knew the 2 victims very well. These 4 suspects were arrested on April 4th after they did the search warrant on the house, based on what they found in the house, which were implements for dismemberment and some cleaning supplies and etc. They were all brought in for questioning, and they were all charged on April 1st. Okay. Amanda Wallace, Stephen Brown, Alexis Neves, and Jeffrey Mackey, all charged with the murder of Malcolm. Well, not the murder, but with the dismembering and hiding of the body and interfering with the police investigation. And that distinction becomes clear very short, because they didn't add the murder charges until April 29th, when they got evidence through their investigation that 2 of the parties, both Alexis Neves and Jeffrey Mackey, were involved in the murders, and the other 2 are involved in conspiracy, hiding evidence from the police and the dismembering. Now, they're all connected, all 6 of them, to a gas station robbery the prior, and that a dispute actually occurred, which caused the death of Malcolm Brown, between Jeffrey Mackey and Malcolm Brown and Alexis Neves. When Donna Conneely interfered, it is said that Alexis Neves helped Mackey move her away and actually hit her with a meat tenderizer, and Mackey stabbed her. Stephen Brown is actually indicated as conspiring with everyone in regards to the murder. The murder seems to have been due to a disagreement in regards to what this prior robbery that they did. But it's not just there. I'd also like to note that we talked about it in the first time that we went over this. I guess it was back in early April or the end of March, that Alexis Neves and Jeffrey Mackey are in a long-term relationship. They have children together. He was listed as living in the house. She was listed as homeless in the indictment. Stephen Brown is actually the cousin of Malcolm Craig Brown, and the family was like distraught over this whole situation. It became quite a thing at the courthouse for arraignment and all of that. Okay. Amanda Wallace is the girlfriend of Stephen Brown. They were in a relationship. So we had three couples together committed a robbery, and one couple ended up dead and dismembered. Okay. Now, for those of you that like to read, I do believe I have for you the indictment, which I'm going to go over the indictment too, and then I'm going to bring up more. Boop, 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 boop. I do. Okay. I'm just going to call this Babylon indictment. Okay. This will list all the charges that they all have on them. It doesn't give a lot of detail, but I have. Okay, so now in the indictment, this is of course coming out of Ray Tierney's office, the district attorney. Let's get here. That's the house. The suspects on the arraignment day, as they were all going forward, together. It's been said that Neves and Maggie actually hold hands back and forth, going back and forth to court. But on the indictment, which was updated on April 29th to add the murder charges, it is Jeffrey Mackey that is charged with murder in the second degree as a Class A felony, and then also a second one for murder. He's got two charges of murder, and he's also indicated in the second charge along with Alexis Neves. Alexis Neves only has one charge of murder, and Jeffrey Mackey has two. Okay. The three parties that have the conspiracy charge are Mackey, Neves, and Brown. Okay. Everyone else has hindering of prosecution in the first degree, all four of them. Tampering with physical evidence, a Class E felony, all four of them. Concealment of a human corpse, all four of them, times two. And then robbery in the first degree for all four of them, which is a Class B felony. Now, the reason I go over the charges is because of the court hearings that happened at the end of September. On the 24th and the 25th, prospectively, all four of them needed to go to court. This is our judge for the case, Judge Richard Ambrose. Okay. And Judge Ambrose is out of Suffolk County. Okay. And he's had to deal with quite a few filings and quite a few things going back and forth. One thing that happened is like they were all out on bail until the charges got up to murder. Okay. Amanda Wallace was the first one to have her bail, like not even bail. They were on their own recognizance at first, like until they decided what the charges were going to be. And then Amanda Wallace actually got a shoplifting charge. So she then got remanded and then had to be bailed out. Okay. Since then, the charges were updated and formally arraigned, but Mackey, Neves, and Brown were all put in jail. Brown is out on bail. Alexis Neves needs $1 million to get out, or a bond towards, and Jeffrey Mackey is being held no bond. Okay. I do believe Stephen Brown did get out. They were the first ones to have an arraignment, I believe, on the 24th, and Judge Ambrose was quite pleased with, especially Amanda Wallace, who was there on the 24th, I believe. She went first. And when she went in, she pled guilty to all of the charges, except for conspiracy, because she was not involved in the planning of the murder. And in her allocution to the judge, she actually gave some details in regards to the murder. It was in regards to the robbery. There was a disagreement between Mackey and Malcolm Brown, and he wanted to take them out. They something about the cut or something. There's no detail about what the disagreement was about, but they literally planned ahead to kill them. Mackey stabbed Malcolm Brown, according to Amanda Wallace, several times. And when Donna Conneely went to stop him or to interfere, that is when Alexis Neves helped restrain him back, hit her with a meat tenderizer, and Jeffrey Mackey stabbed her. So Mackey and Neves are charged with the murder of Donna Conneely, and Jeffrey Mackey is charged with the murder of Malcolm Brown. Stephen Brown, the cousin, is charged in the conspiracy because because he's his cousin and everything, that they're all there. They all were there in the house together, and he apparently knew about this plan and didn't do anything about it. Amanda Wallace admits that she then helped to dismember and hide the body and clean up. And she admits to all of that in open court to the judge, and the judge now will be putting her to try, to sentencing or trial or something else at the end of the year. Okay. We don't know yet. Okay. Now, Stephen Brown went in on the 25th, and he also pled guilty to all of the other charges, including the conspiracy, because he says he did not do the murder. As Amanda Wallace said, they did not do the murder. They didn't want anything to do with the murder. Amanda Wallace is saying that she didn't even know they were going to do the murder, so she didn't get conspiracy charges. All this came in the investigation before the formal charges were even put in. But Amanda did give testimony for it in open court when she pled guilty. And then Stephen Brown stepped up and he also pled guilty. So we will have sentencing on both of them, but not really trials. Okay. They actually pled guilty to the charge of conspiracy, of dismembering, of, interfering with the investigation, and for hiding the bodies. Okay. But of course, at their arraignment, Jeffrey Mackey and Alexis Neves, who have the most serious charges, they pled not guilty. Yeah. Now, Mackey and Neves are charged with both the murder and the conspiracy. Okay. But they have pled not guilty, and they are scheduled to go to trial in 2025, in early 2025. So far, I have seen no waivers of preliminary hearing and no waivers yet of speedy trial. But I'll be keeping an eye on them. This case is in New York. It's a little more difficult to get anything, but I'm keeping on top of it. Okay. This case got a lot of significant media attention when it happened, when the body parts were found, I guess because people wanted to link it to Gilgo Beach. But since then, it's kind of died down. I haven't seen anything really in the media after the hearings that were last week. I mean, nobody was even talking about it. As a matter of fact, articles were pretty scarce also. It does, finding widespread body parts all over Long Island because of the Gilgo Beach is not really big news, especially once it was not linked to Gilgo Beach. I guess it just went on a back burner. It did also have the whole community up in an uproar in regards to, whether they were safe or not, with safety issues and everything, And then just to recap, I believe these are the pictures, just so you can keep them straight. This is Stephen Brown and Amanda Wallace. And like I said, they admitted their roles in the dismembering of Stephen's cousin, Malcolm, unfortunately, and his partner, Donna Conneely. They both pled guilty. So we're going to see what their sentence is. I do not have a date for their sentencing as of yet. And this is actually, to keep it straight, this is Jeffrey Mackey and his girlfriend, Alexis Neves. And they also, they pled, Brown pled guilty to the second degree conspiracy, but not Mackey and his girlfriend. So if you're reading that, I don't want it to be misconstrued. It's a bad sentence, and I admit it. I'm gonna have to fix it. Um, but Mackey, who's from White Plains, and Neves, who actually grew up in Valhalla but was listed as homeless on the indictment, they pled not guilty to the charges, including the second degree murder charges. Okay. Mackey, like I said, remains in custody and with being held without bail, and Neves is being held on $1 million bond, which I do not believe she made. Okay. And that's that for that. Let me just take that down. I'm going to look for questions, and then I'm hoping that that link was okay for you guys. Hey Juju, how you doing? Hi Anna. Oh yeah, yeah. Ooh. I really like the justice system because of this stuff of deal making. Well, you see, with Amanda Wallace, if she didn't actually commit the murder, I'm kind of glad she pled guilty. Oh, but she's got a rap sheet for shoplifting and things like that. And I think she should plead guilty to what she actually did. And she's owning up to all of the other parts, that she did. So, but the other things like people that are involved, I don't think Neves and Mackey are going to get a deal. I really don't. I saw an article or two on it. I was surprised it wasn't, yeah, right? Right, Anna? I was, you know, damn. She pleads guilty, so the turning on each other has begun. Smart move, not messing around. Exactly for her, because she's the one who, while she was on her own recognizance and they're investigating everything before the official like long-term charges come out, she goes and gets a shoplifting collar on her too. So she got thrown back in jail. So she started talking with them right away. I mean, they probably approached her. I wouldn't say she was trying to sing like a songbird or anything like that. Just that, um, just that, the opportunity was there because like they had her right there. So why not? Like, and it actually was valuable information in regards to how things occurred. Okay. Now, we're still not sure if Neves and Mackey will be tried together or if they will do the sentencings on the same day for Brown and for Wallace. I doubt it. I mean, usually it's just they all have public defenders, no private attorneys. So if if for the public defender's office, if they want to make it easy for the sentencing, perhaps they'll do them on the same day. All I know is we don't get inside. We don't get to see the hearings or anything in New York courts on the criminal courts on this stuff. But we should get some reporting on it. The reporting just doesn't come out immediately that day on most days. There was very, very little on this. I had to really, really dig and call in a few favors legally because I knew that those hearings were on the 24th and 25th, and I just needed to know. I just needed to know, you know. But let me just see. Have they? Juju asked before I even said it. Have they started flipping on each other? Yes, obviously they have. Everyone except for the couple charged with murder, they are still very tight-lipped about who did what. They will not say anything about each other, from what I read. Odd that first chat shows blank on my screen. Does it? What was that? You mean the first one I put up? No. No, I don't know. I don't know why it came up blank, but I'm sorry that it did. So if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm going to move right on to our Kansas City, or not Kansas City, but just our Kansas missing moms who, unfortunately, tragically, um, actually became a homicide. And I'm going to do a little recap with you on this one too. Just get okay. So boop, ba-doop, ba-doop. There we go. But it's not in the right format, is it, guys? Hold on. Eek. You get to watch me push buttons. That's better. There we go. This is Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelley. And these were the Kansas missing moms back in, I believe it was early, let me just make sure I've got the facts. This was back in March, at the end of March. Okay. They were missing. People were looking for them right away. Long story short, Veronica Butler was in the middle of a pretty heated custody battle between her the children's father, who actually was allowing his mother to go for full custody of his children, Mr. Rickman, who, let me just pull up. I know we have pictures and all of him, but I just wanted the victims here uh, for a few moments. But then we do need to talk about the custody case that led to all of this, just to get a good understanding. On March 30th, Veronica Butler traveled to a designated location, Four Corners in Oklahoma, to pick up her children on a supervised visitation through the courts. They were ages 6 and 8. She was having a birthday party for the youngest. She was accompanied by Jillian Kelley, a court-approved visitation supervisor. That a court appointed supervisor was not the normal one. The normal one, Cheryl Burns, I believe, was actually called by one of the defendants, the mother of Rickman and ex-in-law of Veronica Butler, now suing for full custody of the children. She used Cheryl Burns, and she had called her and told her there wouldn't be any need for a supervised visit. She should take a few weeks off. So she did, and she wasn't available. So that's why Jillian Kelley went. That's going to come up in the case against Tiffany Adams. Needless to say, the women never arrived. There was a lot of posts done all through Oklahoma and Kansas, all in that area. Four Corners is kind of like on a border part. They said they were at risk and missing. The family knew something was wrong right away. They knew some contentious things were going on with the mother-in-law, and also had in the past with the ex-husband. Veronica Butler had started her life over after leaving him, and they had got Rickman had got custody of the children, and then he, through with the help of his mother, and then he went to jail for a whole bunch of nasty stuff in November. And then she actually showed the court that she was actually, when she left, she didn't have a job, but she does have a home and she does have a job. You know, they basically used kicking her out of the house and not being with them anymore as a reason for the children. And there was a lot of allegations from Tiffany Adams, not so much from Rickman, the father of the children, but from the mother-in-law, or his mother, a lot. And she just wanted those kids, and she actually would not even let Rickman see them most of the time. So anyway, there was supervised visits, and it was scheduled that Butler was actually going to have a court appearance very soon that was going to bring her back her visitations not to be supervised, and she was going to get joint custody back. She had done everything that the court asked her to do. She was going through hoops. It was just a matter of time. Everything looked really good, and I think that that is going to be listed by the prosecution as part of the motive for why Tiffany Adams organized what she did, and that is what the charges say. This is Jillian and her husband, Pastor Hugh Kelley. She was, all accounts say that she was just a breath of fresh air whenever she came into the room. She was so inspiring and uplifting, and she gave a lot of time, especially for things like this, to go as a court-appointed visitation supervisor. Not always a pleasant thing for people to do. It takes a lot of time out for you. There's a lot of rescheduling you have to do of your own, and you have to put up with a lot of different personalities and stress. And she does that all, for the greater good. Absolutely wonderful woman. And both of these women, too young and too horribly gone. Okay. This is Veronica Butler with the kids. I blurred out their figures. That is, um, I do believe that that was her new husband. Okay, this is Wrangler Rickman, the father of the two children, who is been released from his last charges, but ordered for a 6 month rehabilitation stay in for drug addiction, a 6 month one. So currently, I do believe that it is Veronica Butler's sister that has custody of the children or has the children, but I cannot find any documentation because it involves the children. It's all sealed. It's really hard to get a hold of those kind of records. But I'm still looking. I do believe that they're being cared for and that they're safe. All accounts would say they are. They're definitely not with Tiffany Adams because she's in jail and they wouldn't let her out. Okay. All right. So this is just all about the custody that I had gone. I'll leave it up for just a minute. But anyway, there was all these filings back and forth, in early 20, Rickman goes to prison and Adams has physical custody, but she doesn't have legal custody yet. And there was supposed to be on April 17th court date, like I said, that Veronica Butler would regain rights to share custody and non-supervised visit, which means that Adams was going to lose her full custody bid, for sure. Okay. All right. That's more on him. Anyway, this is the abandoned vehicle was found just south of the Kansas border. When they found that vehicle, they found Veronica Butler's glasses. They found evidence of some violence and they found some blood on the scene. This is why they actually stepped up everything. It did look like foul play. They did much more extensive search of everything. It just looked totally bad from the start. Not only because of the contentiousness of what was going on and the family alerted everybody right away, but then also just when they finally found the vehicle, what they found there, it just led them. Okay. That was the route. It wasn't very long. Okay. And this is, all right. So fast forward that on April 18th, 4 people were arrested. And there's now charges, Oklahoma versus Adams et al., which includes Tiffany Michelle Adams, which is the grandmother, her significant other, Tad Burt Cullum, and a couple, Cole Earl Twombly and Coral Gale Twombly. And if you'll remember, a lot of what we talked about in the first, and I did link a playlist below for actually this case too, so you can go back to the other video. But Cora Gale actually told her daughter about this conspiracy to kill Veronica Butler that was put together by Tiffany Adams because she didn't want her to have the children. She didn't like her. And they actually came back on the day of the event, which was the day they went missing, and actually had that young woman at 16 years old clean the vehicle that they used to go back and forth. The real stellar people we're going to be talking about here. So you might get a little snark from me because when it comes to these 4, I got to tell you, I can't. I just can't. I mean, she literally came home and told a 16-year-old about all this like it was normal. The 16-year-old did give most of the information to the police and did reported about how they're all, this is them, Tiffany at the bottom. That is Cole Twombly to her side. Above is Cora, and then on the other side is Tad. He's the top one up there. And the daughter also gave some information about them having a little group called God's Misfits. Now, when you search the internet, you're going to come up with a group that's called God Misfit, but that man has a Facebook group and it's all love and light. And he was really upset to be tied into these 4. These 4 are an anti-government, anti-society type group. Border, like they don't have to follow anybody's laws or rules in the guns, violence, you name it. Rumor has it that Tiffany Adams has quite the reputation and people fear her. Now, Tiffany Adams did have an official job once. She was the Cimarron County GOP chair at one time. She is involved in politics in the area. You know, she's known as a mover and a shaker, but she's also very fearful. People don't cross her. I mean, during the interviews in when this was more popular in the media, back in March and April, they were coming up with all kinds of quotes from the townspeople and everybody about Tiffany Adams and how you just don't cross them and how bad a dude Tad Cullum was. Basically, this investigation led because Tad Cullum actually had known someone who had property, Mr. Beasley, that he was actually doing some work with, and he used his equipment and all to dig the hole where they eventually found Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelley's bodies. And more information has been released about that. They found those bodies in a freezer, bound, shot. Yeah, and there was enough evidence there in the hole that Mr. Cullum arranged to have for everyone to be charged. It seems like once they got the direction of where everything was and they started investigating because of the uh, adverse relationship of Tiffany Adams with Veronica Butler, people they got a lot of leads and things started to get really, really good. Can you hear me? Yeah. Wait, Claire, I don't hear you. Sean, you don't hear me? Mm. Hopefully, I'm not muted. You don't hear me? Can anybody else tell me? Okay, so trees, does Jude. I think it might be. I think it might be you. I don't see anything here. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Well, all right. So it gets a little more involved because they all were arrested around, like, I think there was the 24th. Um, and they were charged with murder in the first degree, deliberate intent, felony, 2 counts, one for each, kidnapping because they took them from the scene, conspiracy to commit because they all planned it. Okay, in the first degree, deliberate with intent. Now, these things that say deliberate with intent, they all go to sentencing. They all go to enhanced charges and enhanced sentencing. Okay. They did not. Cora and Cole. This is where I was telling you that they were just really ornery with in the investigation, really ornery with the police. The daughter just went in and told them everything. They were really trying to keep the daughter from them and their son from being anywhere near them because they know they talked to. Obviously, they must have known because they blabbed their mouths in front of them that they might say something. Okay. Listen, District Attorney George Leach was really wanted to just take it to the judge immediately that there was no way anyone would be safe if these four were allowed to go out on bail. And so he said, taking into consideration the rebuttal presumption of the law in that county, and as detailed in the attached affidavit, no condition would assure the safety of the community, which includes the witnesses and court personnel involved in this case. The facts are that in order to prevent Veronica Butler from regaining custody and or unsupervised supervision with her children, the defendant and conspirators were willing to commit murder. Said murder was complex and involved extensive preparation. There are statements of the co-conspirators that their problem would be taken care of because in addition to removing Veronica, they knew the path the judge walked to work. Now faced with the consequence of a sentence of death or life in prison, the defendant and conspirators would be willing to do anything since they have shown to be willing to commit murder, capital murder, in order to limit Veronica's visitation. So they asked them to hold the defendants without bail allowed under Oklahoma Constitution. Now, okay, so then we get up to what's new. This is our judge, Judge A. Clark Jett. And this guy is like a real people person. That little boy there is not his or a grandchild or anybody visiting. It was actually somebody who had to actually get some papers signed with the judge for something specific that he had to take care of, and he brought his children. And the judge introduced himself, told them a little bit about law, and let them play with the gavels. There were two boys there on that day. And I just thought that was a sweet story about the judge. This judge has, I look, there's like nothing about him. I don't think he could be bought. He's in Oklahoma, and I just don't think that the defendants are going to be very happy that he's the judge. Okay. But before we get to that, somebody else got charged. Oh, I gotta find him. Okay. A couple of days after the arrest of the original four, a fifth accomplice, Paul Geis, arrested on April 29th. Now, Paul Geis is the only one that's not acting like the rest. They all have public defenders. Okay. So does Paul Geis. Well, he was arrested after the fact, and he's already waived preliminary hearing, waived speedy trial, and he'll be arraigned on February 19th, 2025, separately. Okay. Because one of the big things that happened recently was that the court, I have to go back now. The Texas County District Attorney George Lee filed a motion on September 9th to combine the cases against all the five defendants. Okay, and during the discovery hearing on that September 18th, all parties were being heard, making their cases as to whether the defendants would be separated or consolidated for the preliminary hearings in December. All parties except for Cole Twombly requested the hearings be separate. He really didn't care. He's part of the couple that were actually having these God's meet. Like the daughter testified that they had the God's Misfit meetings at their house, and they were really involved in it, and actually giving the testimony about what the mother said when she got back. The preliminary hearing, overseen by the Texas County Associate District Judge A. Clark Jett, will determine if there is enough evidence to bind over the defendants for trial. So they're not waiving the preliminary, but Paul Geis is. And here's where it's going to get interesting. Hold on. I'm going to pull for you some documents. Not that one. This one. Okay. Here is the state's motion from the beginning of September. And the reason that I'm giving you this is because it actually outlays the crime. And I'm going to drop this for a second. And I'm going to go over that because it actually says who did what. When you've got multiple people involved in the crime, it's always good to know where actually the prosecution is coming from in regards to the crimes. Okay, so we can see here, start at the top, that the state of Oklahoma is listing all five of them, even though they have a separate case number, like on the end. There has been a motion in this. The state wants to actually consolidate with the evidence that they have against all of them. And they've got really good reasoning here. And I thought this was very good to go over in regards to how that could happen. When is it appropriate to keep them together or to separate them? So, of course, it's the state of Oklahoma, and it's more than likely on Mr. Leach again. But anyway, let's go over the facts of the case. Tad Cullum, Tiffany Adams, Cole Twombly, and Cora Twombly and Paul Geis all entered into an agreement, aka conspiracy, and planned for murders of Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelley. Pursuant to the plan and in furtherance of the conspiracy, they each did their respective part, which culminated in the deaths of Butler and Kelley. Cole and Cora, in part, were the lookouts on the day of the murders, and in furtherance of the conspiracy, confided in their daughter in hope of receiving an alibi for the morning of the murders. It didn't work out. Grice, in part, okay, Paul Grice, the fifth, okay, stabbed and killed Butler, sliced his hand badly with the knife, and accompanied the bodies of Butler and Kelley to the burial site. He threw his clothing, a stun device, and a knife used to kill Butler in the burial site. His clothing found in the burial site contained his and Butler's DNA. Cullum, in part, got permission from the landowners, that was Mr. Beasley, to dig the hole for the burial site and dug the hole with his skid steer the day before the murders. Intent. He stabbed and killed Kelley and drove the bodies of Butler and Kelley to the burial site. He put his clothing in the burial site and buried Butler and Kelley inside a freezer in the previously dug hole. His clothing found at the burial site contained his and Kelley's DNA. The accessories to the knife found at the burial site were found in his home. Adams, in part, grandmother to the children, purchased the burner phones from Walmart, which were used by the conspirators to communicate. She purchased the stun devices at Standard Supply. One of the stun devices were found in the burial site. She purchased the yellow straps that were placed around the freezer container holding the bodies of Butler and Kelley at Tractor Supply. She purchased the pants that Cullum put in the burial site. Adams hated and despised Butler and wanted her dead. Pursuant to the plan and conspiracy, each defendant did their part to aid and abet in the murders of Butler and Kelley. And here's the argument, okay? And I'm sorry, trigger a little bit of it. I should have given you a trigger warning, but if you're here, you know I do the real language. Like, I'm not going to soft this. This is murder. This was horrible. And we want to see justice. So, all right. Where defendants participate in the same criminal act, and here we go, there is no authority in Oklahoma authorizing or mandating a separate preliminary hearing for each defendant. For trial in court has the pursuant to these actual legislative laws to order separate charge, but in these matters, we're only seeking joinder for the preliminary hearing. In other words, he's saying you have the ability to do it separate or together, but we're just asking for the preliminary where we show you the evidence that to go to trial, that we keep them together. In a preliminary hearing, the judge is the decision maker. As the trier of fact, it is presumed that the judge will only consider competent and admissible evidence in reaching his decision. And they cite some law. Court held in that actual case, Long versus State and Fox versus State. Further, we hold in the instance case that the trial judge, since he has the skills with which to rule on admissibility of evidence and base his decision solely on that evidence, he determines to be competent, relevant, and material. In other words, we want to show you the whole thing and you can take it from there. Rather than do it 4 times, let's just do it once, because you have the expertise, you have the judgment, and legally the responsibility and the ability to do it. The court has been practicing law for 47 years. He's an older judge, many of which have been spent on the bench. With that experience, there is no question this court is able, in a single preliminary hearing, to determine what evidence is admissible against each defendant and separate the evidence that is not admissible in making probable cause determinations therein. Though the following authority relates to joint trials, it would appear to be even more compelling when applied to joinder at preliminary hearing. The state policy of the Court of Criminal Appeals regarding joint trials is as follows. This court has recognized in the past that it is in the interest of both justice and economy to jointly charge and try those alleged to have participated in the same criminal act, and has urged trial courts to do so whenever possible. The United States Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, elaborated on the reasons why joint trials are preferable. Joint trials have long played a vital role in the criminal justice system, preserving a government resources and allowing victims to avoid repeatedly reliving trauma. Further, joint trials encourage consistent verdicts, and enable more accurate assessments of relative culpability. Separate trials are apt to have varying consequences for legally indistinguishable defendants. Also, separate trials randomly favor the last tried defendant, who have the advantage of knowing the prosecution's case beforehand. Those are all very valid points. In the Richardson case, cited in the above quote, explained more regarding the practicalities of joining co-defendants. It would impair both the efficiency and the fairness of the criminal justice system to require, in all these cases of joint crimes where incriminating statements exist, the prosecutors bring separate proceedings, presenting the same evidence again and again, requiring victims and witnesses to repeat the inconvenience and sometimes trauma of testifying, and randomly favoring the last tried defendants who have the advantage of knowing the prosecution's case beforehand. Joint trials generally serve the interests of justice by avoiding inconsistent verdicts and enabling more accurate assessment of relative culpability, advantages which sometimes operate to the defendant's benefit. Even apart from these tactical considerations, joint trials are generally serve the interest of justice by avoiding the scandal and inequity of inconsistent verdicts. It is also worth saying that separate trials are apt to have varying consequences for legally indistinguishable defendants. The unfairness of this is confirmed by the common prosecutorial experience of seeing co-defendants who are tried separately strenuously jockeying for position with regard to who should be the first to be tried. You know, all that backstabbing stuff like Juju was talking about before. Did they start yet? Where they're going to try to avoid all that and just get them all at once. In particular, the preference in a conspiracy trial is that the persons charged together should be tried together. And especially, it's conspiracy, right, guys? I mean, because that conspirators, it's all going to be the same conversations, the same talk, the same evidence about the conspiracy, right? Oh, severance is discretionary and should be granted only when there is a serious risk that a joint trial would compromise a specific trial right of one of the defendants or prevent the jury from making a reliable judgment about guilt or innocence. Now, when they talk about compromising a specific right, that would come up when we covered Vallow and Daybell. Vallow did not waive her right to a speedy trial. She had to have a trial by a certain date. Daybell did. Okay, so he had more time. And also, Daybell had death penalty. Vallow didn't. These were separated based on the issues of just on speedy trial and waiver for speedy trial. Because one or the other would be compromised to their right. And so they had to have separate trials at that point. It's really the only fair thing to do. Even though a lot of the evidence was the same, they did have to go through two. Okay. And Chad Daybell's was second, which didn't really bode well for him because a lot of that like came in. Well, not really as to the verdict. Okay. And he did try to twist it to make her the bad guy. But it was not successful by the defense team. So severance, okay. Exemplifying the point raised by the United States the Supreme Court above, if the court herein were to order 5 separate preliminary hearings and 5 separate trials, the 16-year-old daughter of Cora would be required to travel to Oklahoma and testify 10 different times herein. Such a result is unconscionable. And I agree, because they're going to have preliminary hearing of evidence, and then they're going to be also with trials. The state will put no evidence at preliminary hearing that will be favorable towards any particular defendant. Now, that's a big statement there. The evidence that they have implicates them all. The defendants are no antagonistic positions towards each other. They are all in it together, unable to implicate another without implicating themselves. In other words, there's no deals here for any of them. You can't turn on this one and think you're going to get, you're still going down for this. You're all implicated in the same way. The defendants either entered into planned conspiracy to murder 2 women that culminated in the murders of 2 women or they did not. In other words, you were in it or you weren't. You can't really say I was in it and I'm going to help you nail them and testify, because there's not going to be any deal that way. The evidence is equal on all of them. The state will present independent and separate evidence as set forth in the facts above that will support and require the court to find that there is probable cause to believe that each defendant committed the crimes contained in his or her respective information. Lastly, the defendants would suffer no prejudice in jointer because the court is able in a single preliminary hearing to determine in making probable cause determinations therein, and then just that they respectfully ask that the matters be joined. And blah. Okay. Now bring up the other one back. Little tiny avatar for a second. Okay. All right. So after that motion, and oh gosh, there were 6 appearances for preliminary hearing conferences on whether they're going to do it or not. Status hearings and motion dockets. Early on in this case, the Judge Jett had decided that he would actually meet like the first Wednesday of every month with the attorneys for this and with the state to keep things going on this case. This was a big case. It had a lot of publicity at the beginning, and the family was pushing like for the charges and justice that they didn't want to. They don't want their feet to be dragged. There was a lot of back and forth because of the amount of defendants, because then of charging Paul Geist after the fact. And when I look at it, I don't know what you guys think, but when I look at it, the fact that Paul Geist got arrested after the fact, and then all of a sudden that he's separating himself out, I really do believe that a lot of his interview and interrogation led them to firm up a lot of the evidence that they had. And I would not be surprised to see Paul Geist as a witness on the state's list in the preliminary hearing. But we'll see. We'll see, because he's not sentenced or anything yet, and he may not be able to. So we'll have to see. But after all of that, Judge Jett did actually say that he would combine the preliminary hearing to see if we're going to go forward to trial with these 4, which will be December 17th of this year. Okay. That is, I do believe that's that. Oh, but could we go back to Paul Geist? And I do want to talk about him because, it's very curious to me. He did kill one of the women. He is one of the ones that actually did the deed. Tiffany Adams was not at the gravesite nor at the pickup site. Okay. Cora and her husband, the Twombleys, were. They were actually the lookout and the diversion. They had their vehicle there and they helped in the implication. Okay. Apparently, they all had stun guns and they all had phones provided by Tiffany Adams. All the supplies for the deed were provided by Tiffany Adams. It is said in the other agreement that it is believed that she initiated the conspiracy with Tad Cullum to actually do this, and that Tad Cullum contacted Paul Geist as he to go to assist. The court documents since after the coroner's report have said that the murders were brutal. They were stabbings, not shot. There were burner phones used, stun devices. They must have stunned them first. Okay. The judge had decided after reading the motion from the district attorney that there was clearly enough evidence just there of conspiracy in which all of the defendants acted essentially together to commit the crime. So the defense really was arguing for separate trials, calling, individual rights for justice and this and that. But when conspiracy is involved, it kind of fell flat with the judge. And he kind of said, nah, it's all the same crime and the same conspiracy, and we're going to go forward. Okay. Um, so that was that. That was decided in mid September by the judge. I'm going to look for some questions. I will have to look into that, Anna. Um, I'll have to see. I haven't seen anything on it, but they all have some criminal history there. Tiffany Adams herself has a bad reputation. Tad Cullum is a bad guy. There were quotes in articles about like you don't want to cross these people. Um, you'll pay for the victims deserve the justice and kindness of the accurate language. Thank you, Juju. Yep. And thank you. Like my watermark. It's only because I was putting the link out publicly. Yeah. I know it's kind of weird to see it up on the screen though, but I used the same link from the chat. Oklahoma does have pretty interesting laws. Conspiracy in Oklahoma is going to be pretty good, pretty easy to prove, I think. Especially if they have one of the conspirators, Paul Geis, who already waived a preliminary hearing. Like he's like, nope, you don't even have to give me a preliminary hearing. I'll go by the indictment. Waived on a speedy trial. He's going to take his time. The waiving of the speedy trial kind of gave me a hint that that the prosecution wants him available for testimony, perhaps, or it's an affidavit or something. It's something to do with his actual conversations with them. Okay, his arraignment is after their preliminary hearing in February. His isn't until 2025, and they're all being held as dangers to society. They're not going to get out. Yep. But it's all quite interesting. Now that they're going to make it one preliminary hearing, I wonder how I'm going to be able to find documents under what number. Like I just hope the media does pick it up. Hey, I am glad you came back, Sean, and you can hear now. That's pretty good. All right, so questions besides his record, because like I don't know. I really don't. I really don't know about his record at all. Well, that Oh, and you know what? I'm over time. I'm going to send you all. I'm going to end this. And if you'd like to still continue, I'll meet you over at the next stream for Sarah Boone, which I've got quite a few documents for you over there and some docket updates that happened that are quite interesting before we actually end up at that trial that's supposed to start in 6 days with jury selection. And we have a hearing tomorrow, but I thought it would be good to get updated. So on that, okay, I'm just going to end this and I will see you all there. Now I did put a redirect on, but if not, you are going to hit that live button. It's going to come up very shortly. Okay.